question from Marcos, all the way in Brazil, who asks his question this way: does God have two wills?
Well, usually when somebody asks me a question about multiple wills in God, they have in view, I'm not sure this is what Marcos is thinking, but they have this way in which the New Testament word for will there's two different words, both of which are translated by the English word in the English Bible, by the English word will. And it would be nice to say, if we look at one Greek word, it means one thing, and if the other Greek words, that means something else. But even the different words that are translated by will have different aspects to those meanings. They're nuanced. In other words, the Bible speaks of the will of God in more than one way. First of all, the Bible speaks of God's will in the ultimate, sovereign, efficacious will, that will by which God brings to pass whatsoever he decrees. When God created the universe and says, "Let there be light," there was no possibility that the lights wouldn't come on, because God willed it sovereignly and efficaciously. And sometimes we can speak in terms of the decretive will of God in this sense. But also the Bible speaks of God's will with respect to his legislating the behavior of his creatures, that God sovereignly decrees those principles and those laws that we are called to obey. Now that will, which we call his prescriptive will, by which he prescribes what obedience is supposed to look like, that will obviously can be and is thwarted by our sinfulness every single day. So we have to distinguish between the prescriptive will of God and the decretive or sovereign efficacious will of God. Then there's still another distinction we can make. We can speak of God's will of disposition. That is, that God has a benevolent attitude towards the fallen human race. He causes his rain to fall on the just as well as on the unjust, and common grace is bestowed upon every human being. So those are just three, right out of the gate, different distinctions that we have about the will of God. Now, often people speak about the hidden will of God and the revealed will of God. And people ask me, how can I know the will of God for my life? And I say, well, the Bible tells us this is the will of God, even your sanctification. So in the scriptures, God has revealed what his will is for us. But that's not what people are usually asking. They say, well, I know what he requires and what he says we should do in the Bible, but I want to know whether I should marry Elizabeth or Sally or Mary, or whether I should live in the United States or in Guatemala or in India, or should I be a baker, a butcher, an Indian chief? What is it? And I said, well, now you're asking me about what we call God's hidden will. And there's a reason why it's hidden. And I say to people, I said, quit worrying about the hidden will of God. It's none of your business. If it were your business, God would have revealed it to you, but he doesn't. Now, also people distinguish between his sovereign will and what some people call his permissive will. Now that's where we get on very thin ice, because whatever God permits, he doesn't permit in the sense of sanctioning it positively. But when I say that God ordains all that comes to pass, which would include even wickedness and the evil activities of human beings, and we say, well, he only wills it in the sense that he permits it. But anything that God permits, he chooses to permit. And he could have theoretically chosen not to permit it. If I am going to sin in the next 15 seconds, which is a lead pipe cinch, God could prevent me from sinning. All he has to do is annihilate me. He has the power to annihilate me, And he has the right to annihilate me. And he knows perfectly well what it is I'll be doing in the next 15 seconds, which 15 seconds have already passed. But if he allows me to go ahead and sin, it's because for his reasons known to him, he has chosen to allow me to do it. And insofar as he has decided to allow me to do it, at least to that degree, he has ordained it. Not that he has forced me to do it or coerced me to do it, but he has, in his sovereign authority, permitted it. Now, I hope that answers, Marcos, what you're getting at in your question about the different kinds of will of God. At least there's a starting place for us.